All right, my friends, God bless you. So glad to be back on again on this great Thursday night. And I am, again, excited about this topic tonight. We're going to be dealing with the myth of religion versus relationship. And so we'll be talking about the myth of religion versus relationship. And as you're getting on tonight, the room is building, so I definitely appreciate all of you who have been joining me over the last few weeks, actually the last month now, and I am very excited about the direction that these Facebook Live videos are going, and I also intend to do something more with this platform. So stay tuned for more ahead. But again, tonight we're going to be dealing with the myth of religion versus relationship. I see quite a number of people on. Big Steve, Pastor Donovan, Pastor Kelvin. God bless you as you're getting on. I see quite a number of others. Key Anthony Roby. God bless you. Amen. We appreciate you. I see my cousin Jamie, and quite a number of you. Brother O'Shane and Marva from Jamaica. God bless you again. So want to get right into our topic tonight. We want to talk about the myth of religion versus relationship. And many of you have heard, you've heard this contrast before, religion versus relationship. You know, you see popular memes, and you've heard people talk about it in church. It's become fodder for preaching today, spoken word poetry. You name it, you find this construct here about religion versus relationship. So it is something that we would consider to be a popular, something in pop culture. In other words, it's a popular myth of pop culture. And tonight what I want to do is talk about exactly why it is a myth. And it's very important that we understand the two, so that we can understand how they actually work together. And so one of the things that we've got to look at is the idea that when an idea is repeated often, it will go from being widely believed to becoming an established fact. And we all know, I'm sure you all have a number of examples of exactly how that works out. But again, when an idea is repeated often enough, it goes from widely believed to established fact. And that doesn't necessarily mean that it is a fact. It just appears to be a fact because it has become so widely believed. And so to kind of set this discussion up tonight, I want to just provide a couple of examples, and maybe these examples might bust a myth that you have held for a long time. Well, the first widely held belief, and you heard your mother say it, or your father, or maybe an aunt or uncle or grandma, but it has been widely held that if you go out in the cold wet or with wet hair, that you will catch cold or you will get sick. And but the truth is that just because that is a widely held belief doesn't make that true. And researchers have said that that is absolutely not true. Dr. Rachel Vreeman, medical doctor and assistant professor of pediatrics at Indiana University School of Medicine and the author of the myth-busting book Don't Swallow Your Gum, had this to say about that particular widely held belief or myth. She said scientists have studied this really well. They put cold viruses in the nose of two groups of people. One group was then exposed to cold, wet conditions, and of course the other group was exposed to dry, warm conditions. And she says, and people who were chilled were no more likely to get sick than those who weren't. And so the conclusion then is being outside can make your nose run, and that is because cold weather dilates blood vessels, but it doesn't make you more susceptible to viruses. In fact, the truth is exposure to viruses, not being wet or not having wet hair, causes cold and flu. And so that is an idea that you hear all the time. Now put your hat on when you go outside. It's cold out there. You might get sick. You might catch cold. And the reality is that absolutely has nothing to do with getting sick at all. And again, your nose running is not being sick. It's the idea of your, as she said, cold weather dilates your blood vessels, which ends up causing your nose to run. But you're not necessarily sick. And so again, going out in the cold, wet, or having wet hair doesn't expose you to sickness. It doesn't make you cold. Here's another popular myth. In fact, I am guilty of this one just today. We were we had taken the kids to the dentist and then to a doctor's appointment today, so they were out of school. And we both noticed, my wife and I, their behavior. I mean, they were off the chain, bouncing around, talking loud and loudly and just kind of, just bouncing all over the place. And we were both like, good Lord, what did these kids eat? And I commented, man, looked like they had a bag full of sugar. And well, you had kids like, you know how it is, but that's another widely held view that's very popular, and it's been repeated often, that sugar makes kids hyper. It gets them hyped up. Well, the reality is that many studies have shown that large amounts of sugar do not cause kids to go bonkers. Large amounts of sugar does not cause kids to act hyper. In fact, Dr. Tom Robinson, the director of the Center for a Healthy Weight at Lucille Packard Children's Hospital at Stanford, explains that because so many parents and, as a result, children expect eating sweets to make them hyper, he said that it has become a self-fulfilling prophecy. He said that the way we think we should feel has a lot to do with how we do feel. He said, and here's a case in point. In one study, mothers were told that their sons had actually consumed a drink with a high sugar content. Although the boys had actually consumed sugar-free drinks, the mothers reported significantly higher levels of hyperactive behavior. So they were told that they had been given sugary drinks, and as a result, they believed that their behavior was the result, when in reality, they had only consumed sugar-free drinks. So this is entirely a myth. There's no truth. Now, sugar will cause your kids to get fat, but it won't make them hyper. And no studies, in fact, all of the studies show that there's no direct relationship at all. Now, these are people who research. These are scientists who say this. So regardless of the widely held view, evidence supports the fact that there is absolutely no relationship between sugar, and hyperactivity. So there it goes. Down goes two popular myths. Well, here's a third one. And this one is quite common. And it is the widely held belief that Napoleon was short. In fact, that idea, that belief is so widely held and so believed, it is so established as fact that there is even a psychological disorder named after Napoleon. They call it the Napoleon complex. It's this idea that really short men have to compensate for their shortness in attitude. And so where did this idea come from? Well, historians believe that the confusion is the result of the difference between the French and the English measurement. So the French measurement is called a pouce, which is French for thumb, which is an inch. And so the pouce is slightly larger than the English measurement for an inch. And so whereas it had been widely held that Napoleon was 5'2", in reality he was more like 5'7", which would have been above average for a man in his day. So in reality, Napoleon was not short. He was average height. Well, he wasn't tall, but he was at least average or above average height in reality for men in his day. In fact, today, the average height of an American male is about 5'10". And so that, again, that kind of changes over time and based on certain societies as well. But in Napoleon's day, 5'6", 5'7" was about average or above average height. So the reality is that there's no such thing as a Napoleon complex. Well, there is, but it shouldn't be named after Napoleon because the facts are Napoleon was not short. Even though it is repeated often and it is widely believed that Napoleon was short, the reality is that he was above average. There is a common phrase that floats around theological circles that says in essentials, unity, in non-essentials, liberty, but in all things, charity. That is generally attributed to Augustine. But the reality is that, that phrase is much later than Augustine. In fact, several hundred years later than Augustine. So he wasn't the one that said it. But most of the time when somebody repeats it, they say, Augustine actually said it. But if you repeat a thing often, it becomes widely believed, and it goes from widespread belief to established fact. Well, so it is with the idea of religion versus relationship. This has been widely spread, and so it is believed. And the strength of this belief is not because it is supported by anything scriptural. The strength of this belief is in its often repeatedness. That's where its strength comes from. It's not true for one, and for two, it is only believed to be true because it has been repeated often. Let me give you a couple of scenarios, and just one. All you've got to do is Google religion versus relationship or relationship versus religion, and Google will give you a number of these false contrasts that have been put out over the internet, and it's different people are putting their spin and their take on it. Here's one. Religion kills, but relationship gives life. Religion compares and tears down, but relationship celebrates and builds up. In religion, am I doing enough to please God is the question, but in relationship, Jesus has made me enough, so I am pleasing. In religion, keeps God at a distance, but in relationship, Christ is in you and the Holy Spirit is in you, so forth and so on. In religion, it says religion believes that sin separates us from God. But relationship teaches us that nothing can separate us from God's love. And so that kind of sounds like that sounds good, And then you've got all these spoken word poets and rappers talking about, I got a religion, not a relationship, and all this other stuff, And there are others. Here's another one. Religion cramps my style. Religion rules cramp my style, but in relationship, boundaries keep me safe. See the contrast there? In religion, religion says don't do that, whereas relationship says I won't do that because it will hurt the relationship. Religion, you can't do that. In relationship, I can enjoy the benefits of walking with Christ. And in religion, you have to do all these things. But relationship, I get to do all the things that make God happy. Oh, that sounds so nice. Isn't that sweet? I get to do it. And religion, I'm fearful that I'm not measuring up. In relationship, I enjoy the freedom of being forgiven. And one last one. In religion, judgment comes when I sin. But in relationship, God's mercy covers me when I sin. Here's another one. Religion, if I obey, I'm accepted. But in relationship, I'm accepted, so I obey. Well, it goes on and on and on. And you can find quite a number of these kinds of contrast on religion and relationship. But I'm here to tell you that these contrasts, although they are repeated often, they are entirely false. In fact, the idea for religion, the notion of religion, carries a very negative connotation. And that negative connotation comes from definitions of religion that are actually foreign to how the Bible describes religion. And so it's one thing for this to be an idea that's worldly. It's an entirely different thing for believers in the Word of God, followers of Jesus Christ, to actually carry this kind of idea. And why is it important? And one of the reasons that it's important is that it is not only important for us to believe right, but it is also important to think correctly. We've got to learn how to think right. And so some conclusions we come to, they may be false, but they're not necessarily damaging. They're not necessarily harmful. But that doesn't mean that it's still not important to embrace whatever is true. It's always important to discover what's actually true, because truth is always important. And this is why I wanted to do this discussion tonight, because I want to examine whether or not we should continue telling people that there is some sort of false, that there is something bad about religion, and that what we have is we don't have a religion. That's for religious people. That's religious folks. Should we continue in that line of reasoning? Should we continue in that way of thinking in terms of setting up this false construct, this false category between religion and relationship? So that is the question today. And so let's examine that. Let's look at this religion versus relationship construct. And so one of the things is that this construct is asking for us to make a choice. It's asking for you to choose, in other words, between either or, right? So it kind of sets up this Mary Martha type dynamic, where you read that text in the Gospel of John and you say, boy, I want to be like Mary. I want to sit at his feet. I don't want to be doing what Martha's doing. And so it creates this idea that what Mary had was relationship, but what Martha had was religion, because Mary was sitting at Jesus's feet while Martha was busy doing things. And so it creates that same kind of either or, where you feel like you're constantly having to vacillate between the two. Well, what if there was no need to vacillate or find yourself in the crucible of the either or? What if I told you that you could choose both and? Let me put it to you like this. Jesus never said there was anything wrong with what Martha was doing. What Jesus established was that what Mary was doing had the greater priority. In fact, if you have a relationship with Jesus Christ, you will then begin to serve God and others as an overflow of that relationship. But it is possible now to simply serve, obviously, and not have necessarily a relationship, but it is not possible to have a relationship and not serve. So the reality is that what Martha was doing was good. It was not of the greatest priority, but it was good. And so Mary was sitting at Jesus's feet, an idiomatic expression in Hebraic or Jewish culture for learning from another person. So it doesn't indicate posture. It has to do with in fact, the posture of the mind or the posture of the heart. She was learning from Jesus, which was of greater priority at that moment than actually serving him. Well, that's the way a lot of people think about this religion versus relationship. And it creates, see, it's easy to believe that there's this hard contrast between the two, when you have created a negative connotation around one of the words. So it's like a straw man argument. You set it up so that you could knock it down and say, see, I won, I'm the winner. I knocked that down. But what did you set it up on? Did you set it up on a logical premise? Did you set it up on the correct, on correct teaching, on right ideas? Or was it misrepresented? And so I'm here to say that the whole idea of religion is misrepresented so that it receives this kind of so that this false dichotomy between relationship and religion can be created. I am here to say that the contrast, the tension, the pull between the two is completely contrived. It has been made up by people who don't know what they're talking about. I want to prove that point tonight in the next couple of minutes. And so the first problem, again, with this thinking is that it is misleading. It attempts to replace what it thinks is an error in thinking with an actual error in thinking. That's quite ironic. So by creating an either-or construct, what is actually created is called a categorical error, by first setting up false categories in separating the two and then ultimately creating a false choice. See how that works? And so let's go to the Bible on this, because, we got to be biblical. We're Bible believers, so we've got to be biblical. So in James chapter 1, verses 26 and 27, I won't read it, but if you get some time, James, the brother of Jesus, talked about true religion. And in James 1, 26 and 27, James speaks of true religion as being opposed to useless or vain religion. So in other words, true religion is opposed to useless religion. And just like the Bible talks about faith, true faith, obviously it assumes that there is a faith that's not true. The Bible talks about, Jesus said, they that worship him will worship him in spirit and in truth. True worshipers, he said, will worship him. So if there's true worship, there's obviously false worship. Well, that doesn't necessarily make the idea of worship bad. It doesn't necessarily make, just because there's true worship, doesn't necessarily make worship bad because there's false worship. Well, it's the very same thing with religion. Just because there is an imitation of it doesn't make religion itself bad. In fact, this is exactly why James defines it as true religion. And he talks about true religion serving very, very good functions. He says, James says, in fact, let's go there. I want to read that quickly here. And I know I'm running out of time, but I want to go ahead and read this particular verse here. Let's go to our brother James, chapter 1, verses 26 and 27. From the Holman Christian Standard Bible, the HCSB, he says, if anyone thinks he is religious without controlling his tongue, then his religion is useless, and he deceives himself. He then goes on to say, pure and undefiled religion before our God and Father is this. In other words, this is what it looks like. To look after orphans and widows in their distress, and to keep oneself unstained by the world. And so in James's mind, religion is not a bad thing, and religion is not set in contradistinction to relationship. In fact, religion, according to James, is discussed within the same framework as relationship, so much so that it is indistinguishable based on James's definition. Notice what he says. He says religion looks after orphans and widows. He says in their distress, and not only that, but it is to keep oneself unstained by the world. So it is functional. It is good. It is true. It is something that is descriptive in reality of a relationship. And so to separate the two is a false construct. And so let's go on here. The second problem with this thinking is that it relies heavily upon pop culture's connotation of the word religion, and we kind of talked about that. So let's get into some etymology here. The etymology of the English word religion, and I know that oftentimes etymology doesn't necessarily carry the very same denotation of meaning as the etymology itself. Obviously, even when you put butterfly together, it's not from two different words, one meaning butter and the other meaning fly. And so sometimes etymology can lead you down a slippery slope or a bunny trail, but not in this case. The etymology of the English word religion was translated from the Greek word thraiskia, and it was used by James, and as used by James, it carries one or two meanings. In fact, both meanings ultimately play into James's meaning. And so the etymology is re plus legere, and so which means to read again. The word legere, or the suffix legere, which can even be a prefix, means to read, and re, of course, means again, even in the Latin. And so now, according to Cicero, religar means to bind fast, and this is, of course, something that was used by this definition, of course, was used by a number of later ancients and even modern writers. And sometimes you'll see the Black Hebrew Israelites attempt to seize upon this definition to talk about how bad religion is. You'll see the people who are so-called woke and spiritual. I got to get away from organized religion. It means to bind up. It means to tie up. See, that can't be good. Organized religion is bad because it binds you up. It ties you up. And so they're seizing upon this definition to bind fast. But what they're not doing is they're not doing their homework in order to understand the idea behind binding here. So let's get into that. And so there is, so once again, one definition of religion means to reread or to read again. The other definition of religion means to bind fast. And so let me help you out. So now both etymological roots of the word religion fits the context of James's discourse in his letter. Religion is the covenantal aspect of a relationship. It is the part of the relationship that binds or ties two people together. So in reality, it's like trying to discuss, saying that I've got relationship but not religion is like saying, like Will and Jada, I'm in an open relationship. You can't be in an open relationship and be with Jesus. You can't be in an open, and so religion then is the covenantal aspect of the relationship. It is the thing that creates the parameters for what the relationship is. Do you know any good relationship that does not have boundaries, that does not have some parameters around it, that keeps it mutual, that keeps it between the two persons? If you don't have that, then you really don't have relationship. And so hence then, religion is the covenantal aspect of a relationship that binds or ties two persons together. Hence, the idea of to be bonded. See, you don't think about bonding as something negative. In fact, if you've got a bond, if you've got to maybe do some sort of contractual work, they want to know if you are bonded. If there's a person that maybe they done something and they've gotten themselves incarcerated, or you go bond them out, or you got to put something up, something that ties you and the bond person together to ensure that this person getting out is going to be at that court date. So it is something concrete then. Religion is a concrete thing. It's not something that's merely abstract. So you've got the word bonded. You've even heard the term the bonds of matrimony. Well, what is the bond? Well, matrimony is the relationship. Well, what are the bonds of matrimony? Well, the bonds of matrimony then would be the terms of the relationship. Can you have a relationship with no terms? No. Well, neither can you have relationship without religion. You ever heard somebody, we used to say this growing up back in the days, it was kind of an 80s thing. My word is my bond. What do you mean? That means you can trust me. You see, but now we've got a relationship as friends, but I'm trying to ensure that what I'm telling you, you can trust it. So I say my word is my bond. A word is bond. So notice that we're not just friends. I'm putting something else out there that lets you know that you can trust what I'm saying. We are bonded together. We are bonded together by a certain trust. We go way back. You hear people say, man, on my mother, I'll never do this, that, or the other. What they're doing is that they are bonding what it is that they are saying so that it gives it greater weight of belief. Now, is there already a relationship? Sure. But all relationships are predicated on bonds, if you understand what I'm saying. And so binding language is covenantal language that spells out the terms and agreements of the relationship. If you don't have terms, you don't have a relationship. Hence, the relationship is dependent upon religion. So it is an entirely false construct to talk about religion versus relationship. The relationship is dependent upon the religion. Because if you have relationship with no boundaries, then what you have is a bad relationship. So to simply think about religion as a negative and relationship as positive ignores the fact that not every relationship is good. There are many fathers with sons and daughters. Do they have a biological relationship? Yes. But do they have a good relationship when the person is they're not on speaking terms? No. So again, just because religion can have some negative connotation doesn't make religion negative, in the very same way that relationship is not negative, because relationship can take on some very negative characteristics. And so within the context of James, and I'm wrapping this up, James talked about a person who has faith or a person who hears the word, but they're not a doer of the word. He says that person is just like one who looks at themselves in the mirror and then they walk away immediately and they forget what they saw. So let's kind of create that scenario. You go to the mirror shows you a reflection of how you look. You got a big booger hanging out of your nose. Now, you walk away from the mirror acting like it's not hanging from your nose. James says, well, this is like a person who thinks that they can have faith without actually doing anything. He says you've got to deceive yourself to think that you can believe without it producing any kind of works. Well, James's discussion of religion is within the same context of James's discussion of faith. So in other words, what he's saying is if you've got good religion, then it is like a person who rereads so that you do not forget what the terms of the relationship are. You reread it so that you don't walk away deceiving yourself into believing that you don't have to do anything, or that you can do things that actually violate the terms. So again, the word religion is to reread. So that's one of the definitions etymologically of religion. And the other one, of course, meaning, of course, is to bind together. And that is exactly what we talked about. And so there it is. It is the idea that just like faith without works is dead, a person that has religion, if it is true religion, it will lead you to care for people who are in distress. It will lead you to care for people who are oppressed if you got good religion. See, religion is not bad. If you got good religion, it'll lead you to do the right things, because it is not possible to have biblical faith and not produce works. James said, show me faith without works. I want to see it, because it is not possible. He said, in fact, faith without works is dead. And so then, religion without good works, he says, is useless. If anyone thinks he is religious without controlling his tongue, and so there are these people who claim to have a relationship. Well, the reality is, if the relationship is defined by the religion, well, if you can't control your tongue, seems to me that you don't have good relationship or good religion. According to Brother James now, not according to me, but according to Brother James, you don't have good religion or good relationship. He says, then his or her religion is useless. See? See? If you got good religion, you got good relationship. If you got good relationship, it is because you have good religion, and it is going to produce good works that glorify God, and has an aspect of it is social in its capacity. You cannot claim to love God and have bad relationships with people. There's that cross principle. The two greatest principles by which every believer lives is to love God with all of your heart, mind, soul, and strength. That's vertical. But to love your neighbor as you love yourself, that's horizontal. If you got good religion, you cannot have relationship with God and then not have good relationship with your fellow man. And so you'll know whether a man or a woman's got good religion by how they treat other people. Now, in that, it doesn't that take on some greater meaning in light of course, current events and some of the things that people are debating in the news. So listen, this is just about my time. I so appreciate. I'd like for you to do just a couple of things before I leave. I'm trying to get a better idea of where everyone is from. So even when this video ends, I still would love for you to do it. If you would just type amen and then your city, the city that you're in, that you're watching from. And I'd love to be able to connect with you more. And I am exploring other platforms, obviously, beyond Facebook Live. And I want to try and get a better way of gauging where people are. You know, my goal is to do some on-site some on-site seminars by location. And we've got some great things planned. And so I really appreciate every person who has joined. I want you to continue to hit like, also hit share. Please share these videos with as many people as possible. And if you have not also, I'd love for you to, and I think somebody shared that PayPal link, by giving to us, it allows us to be able, it allows me to be able to spend more time not only producing teaching by Facebook Live, but it allows me to be able to spend more time traveling this country and even around the world, teaching and sharing the gospel, raising up this next generation of reformers and intelligent teachers and preachers of God's word. This is a reformation, and I'm part of it, thank God. And we want to, just like Moses told Pharaoh, let my people go, we want God's people to also think. Let God's people think, as Dr. Ravi Zacharias is so known for saying. And so we'd love for you to donate. Again, it helps me to be able to spend the time to be able to produce those books, that I'm working on. If you stop by my website, DamonRichardson.org, it was just completed a couple of weeks ago. Want to give a big shout out to Jelana Walsh for doing that great work. And of course, there's it's going to be building and more things will be added to it. One of the things that we're going to be adding to it will be an online school of sorts. Not really a school, but online courses. And I've been asked over the last couple of years to teach in some areas that I have specialty in. And I'm going to put those teachings online. It'll be available online at cost, at minimal cost, but it'll be available online for those who want to learn more in depth from me. Of course, you won't have any homework. It'll be a series of 5 lectures based on a particular subject matter, I'd say about 5 hours worth of in-depth teaching and recommended reading to go along with it. So we're working on some things, and I need your help. I'm asking you, please partner with me to continue to be able to be apologetic, to teach, to preach, and to put out good information that helps people understand more about the meaning and the message of God's Word. God bless you again. In Jesus' name is my prayer. Bye-bye.